Welcome back. So we're about to get into some pretty exciting stuff here. We've taken advantage of something called the delegate design pattern or delegation twice now in this application. The first time was with respect to our table view in to-do list view controller. The second time is with respect to our UI text field in add item view controller. In both of those scenarios, we have an item, a table view, and a text field that needs to ask a question of some other class that owns it or that it has a relationship with. In the case of a table view, the table view is asking to-do list view controller, this other item that it has a relationship with, how many rows am I going to display, and what does each row look like? What are the cells that I'm displaying at index 0, 1, 2, 3? In the case of our text field, the text field is just saying, hey, what do I do when a user taps the done or return key on the keyboard? And in both cases, we are providing answers to those questions for those objects that are very specific to the use case of our application. So in the case of the table view, we're saying, hey, it has this many rows, which is equal to the number of items in our to-do list. And here's what each one looks like. It looks like the way we want to present items in our to-do list itself. In the case of the text field, not too unorthodox. We're basically saying when the user hits the done key, dismiss the view controller that contains the text field. We're done with it, no problem. So we want to use the exact same mechanism, the delegate design pattern, to communicate back to our list view controller when it needs to insert a new item. So basically, when a user taps plus, enters some text, and then hits done, we want to pass this string back to the list view controller. And we're going to do that using the delegate design pattern. So I want you to add a couple things to this class, and then let's talk about specifically what they're doing. The first thing we're going to do is make a protocol, and I'm going to call this my add item view controller protocol, just to get super verbose about it. What is a protocol? We've used a protocol twice. We use that for the UI table view data source, right? And we use that for the UI table view delegate here. And you can kind of ignore the words delegate, protocol, and data source, and just think of like each of these things as a collection of functions, but it's really just the function signature. So the name of the function, the arguments, and the return type. It's a collection of those function signatures with no implementation. We don't actually provide a body. The protocol doesn't provide a body for those functions. Instead, it asks the delegate to provide the body, which is the whole point. If you're going to ask somebody else to answer the question for you, you're not answering it on their behalf, right? You're delegating to them, hey, I would like you to perform this task for me. Tell me how many rows to display. Tell me how to respond to the done button. We're going to set up a protocol here and use it so that the add item view controller can say to the list view controller that presented it, hey, I'm done, and by the way, here's a string that you should add to your list. So it's basically delegating the authority or the task of how to respond to the fact that an item has typed in a string in the text field. It's delegating, hey, user has typed in a string in the text field. What do you want to do with this, right? I mean, we could do anything with it. We could text it to somebody. We could add it to our list. We could save it to a database. The list goes on. In our case, all we really want to do right now is let the list know that this item is there so that it can display it in the list. So now that I've set up my protocol here, I'm going to define one function, and I'm going to call that add item. It's going to take one argument, which is called item, and it's of type string. No big deal. Pretty simple. Second, I'm going to add a var here that I call delegate. And I'm going to give it optional type add item view controller protocol. And this basically means, and you'll see shortly, when we create our add item view controller, we're going to say our view controller.delegate equals self. And that's basically the same as we're doing here, self.textfield.delegate equals self. We're saying we're specifying a delegate, a thing that can be asked these pertinent questions. So let's bring it full circle. We've got our protocol set up. We've got our delegate method here. And I'm going to say, like right when the user taps the done key, but before we've dismissed the view controller, I'm going to say if let delegate equals self.delegate. So we're going to say if let delegate equals self.delegate, and we're going to say let item equal really equal text field dot text. Okay. Where text field dot text dot characters are greater than 0. So what's going on here? We're getting a little error. Let's see. Okay. So what we're saying here, and actually let me just finish off this statement here. Actually, we're going to say delegate dot add item. Okay, our warning should go away. So I'm basically saying if delegate is non-nil, right? So unwrap it. If self.delegate is not nil, unwrap it and store it in this let delegate. And I'm also saying on the same line, separated by this comma, I want to extract the text or the item that the user has actually entered. So I want to say like let item is equal to textfield.text only when textfield.text.characters.count is greater than 0. So if this string has characters in it, in other words, if the character count is not 0, store it in let item. And that means that in the body of this if statement, in the body of this conditional, I have a non-nil delegate and I have a non-nil item, which means I can safely say delegate.addItem and pass the item to it, which means that I can safely, ask my delegate to actually do something with a real string. So let's just take a minute and run with a breakpoint. Let's set a breakpoint here. Okay. I'm going to run, and I'm going to hit add item. I'm going to hit cancel. Actually, I'm not going to hit cancel. Forget it. I'm not hitting cancel. I'm going to enter some items here. Sorry, some piece of text here. I'm going to hit done. I'm going to see my breakpoint get hit, and I'm going to use the step over button here. And it's not going to execute this conditional because my guess is, and I know for a fact that delegate is nil, and that's the thing that we got to set next. After having set delegate, this conditional will evaluate. This statement will be called, and we will have an opportunity in our list view controller to actually respond to the fact that the user has entered an item and has hit the done key, and we can insert it in our list. So that was a lot of material, but we'll pick it up kind of in part 2 in the next video. Cool.